Australian property prices have soared in recent decades, making it increasingly challenging for low and middle-income families to enter the market. According to a May 2024 report by the Grattan Institute, home ownership rates in Australia have sharply declined. In 1981, two-thirds of Australians aged 30 to 34 owned homes. By 2021, that figure dropped to just 49%. Why? Rising property prices, inflation, and high interest rates have made saving for a deposit and covering property loan monthly payments harder than ever, making the low-income and middle-income families unable to buy their home to live in. In response, the government has launched the Help to Buy scheme to assist first-time homebuyers, especially those struggling with a deposit, aiming to reverse this trend and restore the original proportion of owner-occupied buildings. Please be aware here, this Help to Buy scheme is not the same as the Home Guarantee Scheme. Unlike the Home Guarantee Scheme, which the government only guarantees up to 18% of a buyer's loan, the Help to Buy scheme allows buyers to pay just 2% of the deposit. In this way, the government contributes significantly to your deposit and shares the ownership with you in proportion. Does it sound very profitable? The government helps you with the deposit payment and has the ownership with you, which means sharing profits and losses together. Is reality really such a good deal? In this episode, we will analyze and discuss how this scheme works and if it's as good as it seems. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Invest with Alison, sharing some stories about Australian life, financial management, and real estate investment. I'm an Australian lawyer and accountant and a licensed real estate agent across different states in Australia. I have published a book called Investing in Australian Properties, Building Financial Freedom. The following content is personal opinion only and does not constitute any investment advice. Now let's take a look at the main contents of the Help to Buy scheme. This program is to provide subsidies to eligible home buyers. The government contributes significantly to the purchase by covering up to 40% of the price for new homes, up to 30% for existing homes. This contribution is not only lending the money to you, but also requires you to return a corresponding proportion of the earnings to the government when you sell the property. That is to say, if the government provides 40% of the funds needed to buy a property, whether house prices go up or down, you need to pay 40% of the property price back to the government when you sell it. If the government provides 10% of the funds needed to buy a house, you need to pay 10% of the sale price to the government when you sell your property, and vice versa. Imagine you buy a house worth $500,000 and receive $100,000 in government assistance from the Help to Buy scheme. That's a 20% ownership stake for the government. If the property value rises to $750,000, the government's share increases proportionally to $150,000. In other words, you will need to repay $150,000 more to the government even if they only contribute $100,000. What will happen if the property price falls? If the property value falls to $400,000, the government's share also decreases to $80,000, as the government's ownership ratio of 20% remains unchanged. This shared equity structure ensures the government shares both profits and losses with buyers. Are there any restrictions on applying for this benefit? The answer is yes. This program is mainly to help low and middle-income families. Therefore, the income restriction would be the first condition for applicants. For individuals, their annual income of an individual cannot exceed 90,000 Australian dollars. For couples, the joint annual income of them cannot exceed 120,000 Australian dollars. The second condition is the identity restriction. Applicants must be an Australian citizen over 18 years old. You are not eligible for applying to this scheme even if you are a PR holder. The third condition is benefit exclusivity. The Help to Buy scheme cannot be used with other benefits at the same time. That is to say, if you apply for Help to Buy scheme, you cannot apply for first home owner grants. The fourth condition is the number of applicants. The current government plan is to provide 40,000 places within 4 years. On average, there are 10,000 places for the 8 states each year. Certainly the number of people varies in each state, so each state gets a different percentage of quotas. You can look at this table on the screen. This table lists the quota you can get for the Help to Buy scheme in each state at the same time. In addition to the limited number of applicants available in each state, the government has also set a cap on the property price people can pay for housing if they want to use the Help to Buy scheme to buy a property. In New South Wales, where Sydney is located, the price of this building cannot exceed 950,000 Australian dollars. In Victoria, where Melbourne is located, The property price cannot exceed AUD 850,000. In Queensland, the limit is not more than 700,000 Australian dollars. In the capital city of Canberra, the property price cannot exceed 750,000 Australian dollars. The other 4 states cannot exceed the 600,000 Australian dollars limit. Let's summarize the advantages of the Help to Buy scheme. The obvious advantage is this plan can greatly reduce the threshold and lower entry barrier for everyone to buy a house, especially for some low-income and middle-income groups. People try their best to save, but they still do not have enough savings for the deposit. The government can help them enter the market smoothly, especially in some cities with high housing prices like Sydney and Melbourne. This plan is especially helpful to those low-income people who live in these cities. According to 9 News statistics, if you are a couple whose age range is 25 to 34 years old, it takes 6 years and 8 months to save up 20% when buying a property in Sydney. But now, you only need to save a 2% deposit under the Help to Buy scheme. Assuming wages remain unchanged, you can buy a house in 10 months, which saves you 5 years and 10 months. These 5 years and 10 months are very important, as in some cities in Australia, let's say Perth, the property price can double in 5 years. However, every coin has 2 sides. We see the benefit of the Help to Buy scheme. What everyone doesn't realize is that there is a huge problem. The first problem is this scheme will make your investment very passive when you enjoy this benefit. This scheme has clearly mentioned that if the government thinks your property is risky and decides to withdraw its equity, buyers must repay within 90 days, potentially causing financial stress. For many first home buyers, this will lead to enormous economic pressure and uncertainty. The second problem is, this benefit will also restrict your portfolio of investment properties. If you buy a property under a Help to Buy scheme, you can't own the second house. Buyers must repay government equity before purchasing additional properties. This will put the young family in a dilemma of not being able to flexibly purchase property in the future. That is to say, this restriction may hinder long-term asset building plans, especially for families with long-term plans. The third problem is actually a happy problem, when you are having a good investment sense. Even though this scheme helps to reduce the burden of buying a house for low-income people, when property values rise, the government claims a portion of the profit based on its equity share. Eventually, the amount of money you end up with will also be significantly reduced. Therefore, it might not be as efficient as you expected to achieve the wealth increase if you are planning to use the Help to Buy scheme. Finally, the future potential hidden risks cannot be ignored. With the popularity of Help to Buy scheme, this plan might replace existing programs like Victoria's Homebuyer Fund, which offers a higher property price cap of $950,000. If this happens, 10,000 Victorian properties priced between $850,000 and $950,000 will lose eligibility for assistance, reducing buyer options. Although Help to Buy scheme helps first home buyers to a certain extent, its conditions and future concerns can't be ignored. My advice? If you're looking to buy a single property to live in, this scheme is helpful, as it is easier to purchase the property with the help of the government and less equity needed. But for those aiming to build a property portfolio, the limitations outweigh the benefits. This might affect your speed of building your own property portfolio. What do you think about the Help to Buy scheme? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like a one-on-one consultation, visit investwithalison.com to book a session. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.